While my husband, Jake, was on a business trip, I was having lunch with my mother-in-law, Susan, when Jake himself called me.
Something serious has happened. Actually, Mom has collapsed.
What? I looked up, shocked. Susan, who was sitting in front of me, also widened her eyes in surprise.
So, the route back from my business trip goes past my mother's house. I'm going to head there and take care of Mom.
I looked at Susan again. Then, Susan put her index finger to her lips, signaling me to keep quiet about her being with me. Understanding her intention, I decided to go along with my husband's story. Is your mother all right? Should I come too?
No, it's okay. Since it's come to this, I'll just say it. My mom doesn't like you. She thinks you're a wife who won't listen. So, there's no need for you to come.
I see. Got it? With that, the call ended. By this time, I had already realized Jake was clearly lying, and he had something he couldn't tell me. As I clenched my fists and trembled, Susan then said,
"So, what shall we do now?"
"My name is Megan. I'm 30 years old. I'm a working housewife in my second year of marriage. I work from home as a writer. I specifically write travel-related articles, leveraging my experience working at a travel agency during my single days. I met Jake through an introduction by a college friend, Kevin. Kevin had promised to introduce me to a colleague, which turned out to be Jake. Jake works for a small to mid-sized company. He's pretty ordinary except for his slightly above average looks. We dated without any issues for about 2 years. He proposed on my birthday, and I happily accepted. We visited my parents to get their blessing for our marriage. Next, we went to visit Jake's family. His parents were divorced, and his dad had moved abroad, leaving only his mom at the family home. I was initially nervous about meeting her, knowing that she was a self-made CEO of her own company. "Nice to meet you. I'm Megan, and I'm in a relationship with Jake." Upon my greeting, Susan said,
"I've been looking forward to meeting you. Come in, come in."
Susan said that with her youthful short hair and straightforward demeanor. Nervously, I sat next to Jake.
Mom, I want to marry her.
"Well, if you two have decided, I won't oppose. Congratulations."
Susan said that with a smile, which put me at ease. Then, the conversation turned to my job.
"What kind of work do you do, Megan?"
I'm a freelance writer. Mostly, I'm just at home on my computer. Susan's face clouded over instantly.
"A writer from home. Is that really okay?"
What do you mean?
"Well, isn't that kind of like a hobby? It must be unstable income-wise."
That's not true. I consider it a legitimate job. However, Susan remains skeptical.
"But still, a steady job like being a full-time employee would be better, wouldn't it?"
I'm passionate about my current job. At that moment, Jake intervened.
Let's just leave it at that, okay?
The situation smoothed over, but Susan still frowned. While she didn't oppose our marriage, she never really understood my job. Nevertheless, our new home was about a 2-hour drive from Susan's place. I figured we wouldn't have to interact with her much, so Jake and I went ahead and got married. The wedding went well. Kevin, who had introduced us, gave a speech, making it a wonderful ceremony. Thus began my life with Jake, which I believe was a happy newlywed life in the first year, with him helping around the house. However, as we entered the second year, Jake started coming home late, citing busy work schedules. Despite this, I supported him without suspicion. Occasionally, I met Susan, who would always suggest, why not work as a full-time employee? Why not get some qualifications? Growing tired of Susan's relentless comments, I one day said to Jake, "Jake, I'm not comfortable around your mom. I respect her, but she always criticizes my job."
Well, Mom is from an older generation. You don't have to force a relationship.
It's a relief you feel that way. He never forced me to get along with Susan or to listen to her. That was something I appreciated. One day, while I was working at home, my phone rang. It was Susan, whom I hadn't seen in a while. Hesitating at first, I answered a call, knowing I couldn't just ignore it. "Hello, Susan, what's up?"
Megan, I wanted to talk to you about your work today.
"Susan, please, I've had enough.
No, it's not that. I wanted to apologize.
What?" It turned out that Susan had come across an article I wrote in a travel magazine. She had researched and found out I was a well-known writer contributing to several magazines.
I read your article. It was wonderful.
"Thank you."
I'm sorry, I may have looked down on the writing profession, but now that I see your talent and how well you're doing, I'm embarrassed. I was wrong, and I'm sorry.
"Susan." I was surprised but also pleased that Susan had apologized. Aside from her opposition to my job, I had always respected and even admired her as a person. I felt a sense of relief as if our past disagreements were dissolving.
So, to make amends, though it's not exactly an apology, I'll be in your town soon. How about we go out for lunch?
Lunch?
If you don't want to, it's totally okay, but I'd love to hear more about your work.
No, Susan, I'm delighted. Please, let's have lunch together. And so, Susan and I agreed to meet for lunch at a restaurant in my town 3 days later. I wanted to tell Jake about it, but he was, as usual, busy with work and had left for a business trip the next morning. I wondered how Jake would react knowing that his mom and I had a pleasant lunch together while he was away. Surely, he would be happy. At that time, I naively thought so. On the day of the lunch with Susan, we chose a fancy restaurant, so I dressed up and headed to our meeting spot.
Megan, over here.
Susan waved at me with a smile, and as I approached, she apologized again.
Sorry for all the trouble I've caused over your job.
It's all right. Susan, let's enjoy today together.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Feel free to order whatever you like.
Wow, the perks of being a CEO. I might as well enjoy something I usually wouldn't.
Oh, Megan, you're such a fun person.
Susan and I shared a laugh and headed into the restaurant. As we talked over lunch, I began to see the good in Susan that I hadn't noticed before. I developed a deep respect for her as a capable, strong yet kind person. After sharing her divorce story, Susan said,
When I got divorced, I was so grateful to have my job. It really made me appreciate the importance of money and working. It's crucial for women to work. I deeply felt that.
Susan, is that why you pushed me towards a full-time job?
Yes, I didn't want you to struggle if something happened, but I see now, Megan, you're doing great.
I'm glad you understand. I'll work hard, just like you, Susan. Just then, my phone rang. It's Jake. I wonder what's up?
Jake's on a business trip, right?
Yes. I'll put it on speaker so you can hear, just in case. I switched to speakerphone and placed the phone on the table. Jake's voice came through.
Megan, listen, something serious has happened.
Aren't you supposed to be on a business trip?
Well, the trip finished without a hitch, but something serious has come up. Actually, Mom has collapsed.
What? I looked up, shocked. Susan, sitting in front of me, also widened her eyes in surprise.
So, you know the route back from Mitrip goes past the family home. I'm going to head there now and take care of Mom.
I glanced at Susan again. Then, Susan put her index finger to her lips, signaling me to keep quiet about her being with me. Understanding her intent, I decided to play along with Jake. So, is your mother okay? Should I come too?
No, you don't like my mom, right?
But,
It's okay. Actually, my mom dislikes you too. She thinks you're a wife who doesn't listen. So, there's no need for you to come.
is that so? Okay, I'll hang up then. And so, the call from Jake ended. I was already suspicious. He was clearly lying. It was likely about something he couldn't tell me. Could it be an affair? As I clenched my fists, trembling, Susan said,
So, Megan, what shall we do now?
Susan, this is about him having another woman, isn't it?
Unfortunately, it looks like he has someone else. But don't worry, Megan, I'm on your side.
Strengthened by Susan's supportive words, I felt ready to uncover the truth. Later, Susan and I plan our next steps.
First, we should check with his company.
Prompted by Susan, I remembered Kevin, a mutual friend who worked at Jake's company. I messaged Kevin, need to talk, to which he replied, can we meet after work today? So, Susan and I went to the designated bar. Kevin was surprised to see Susan with me, but after we shared everything, he finally spoke up.
I checked with Jake's department. He hasn't gone on any business trip. They said he's on paid leave.
Of course, he was lying all along.
I was hesitant to tell you this, Megan.
Kevin looked back and forth between Susan and me. Encouraged by Susan to please tell us, Kevin seemed to steel himself for what he was about to reveal.
Actually, it seems Jake has been getting pretty close with a female subordinate named Maria. She also took leave at the same time.
A female subordinate.
Yes, and apparently, this photo has been circulating around the office.
Kevin showed us his phone, displaying a photo of Jake walking through a hotel district with a young woman. Thank you. Can I have this photo?
Of course. Sorry, Megan. I felt responsible since I introduced you two, and I've been hesitant to say anything until now.
It's not your fault, Kevin. By the way, do you know where this Maria lives?
Well, I know a coworker who might. Let me ask her.
Kevin contacted a colleague right then, who informed us that Maria lived in a condo near the next station. Thank you, Kevin. You've been a big help. After parting ways with Kevin, Susan apologized sincerely to me.
Megan, I'm truly sorry for my son's actions.
It's okay, Susan. It's not your fault. I'll confront him with this evidence, and I'll make sure that woman takes responsibility too.
Wait, Megan, this photo alone might be dismissed as them just walking together. We need more concrete evidence. Leave it to me.
After saying that, Susan called a nearby detective agency. Incredibly, Susan offered to pay for them to secure decisive evidence. This agency was renowned for conducting investigations at an exceptionally fast pace.
Megan, try to find out when he'll be back.
Okay, he just messaged me. He'll be back the day after tomorrow. Susan nodded at me upon hearing this. 2 days later, while I was at home, Jake returned.
I'm home.
Welcome back. How is your mother?
She's calmed down a lot. Looks like I'll need to visit her more often.
Is that so? That must be tough.
She said she feels lonely and wants me by her side.
As Jake said this, the door to the next room burst open.
Who's feeling lonely and wants you by their side?
What, Mom?
Jake nearly collapsed in shock. Susan and I approached him together.
What's this? Why is Mom here? I thought you two weren't getting along.
Too bad, we've reconciled. Imagine our surprise when we were having lunch and got a call saying Mom has collapsed.
That can't be.
Jake was at a loss for words as I confronted him. What have you been doing these last few days, and with whom? Jake turned pale and remained silent. Seeing no progress, I finally said, "Your business trip was a lie, wasn't it? It was actually a romantic getaway with Maria, right?"
What? No, who's Maria?
Jake denied everything, so I showed him the photo Kevin had given me of them in the hotel district. As expected, Jake responded with something like this.
This was just after a drinking party. We just happened to walk by. She's just a subordinate, nothing more.
Oh really? Then what's this? I showed him another photo. The photo clearly showed Jake coming out of Maria's house and kissing her at the doorstep.
What is this?
Pretending to be on a business trip, you went on a romantic getaway and couldn't stay away from your mistress, lying to me and hanging around at her place. This photo was obtained by your mother hiring a detective agency. Mom did. I can't believe it. Jake looked at Susan in disbelief, and suddenly, Susan slapped him hard.
You idiot son, having such a good wife and doing something like this. Have you forgotten what caused your father and I to divorce? It was your father's affair, wasn't it? It's shameful that you only inherited that trait.
Mom.
I once talked about handing over my company to you. Remember, forget it. That's not all. Be prepared because I'm disowning you.
That can't be.
Realizing he had no way out, Jake knelt down before me.
Megan, it was just a moment of weakness. Please forgive me. I promise to be a better husband from now on.
That's when I firmly told him off. Don't be ridiculous. You lied and betrayed me, and now you expect me to forgive you just like that. We're getting a divorce, and I'll be taking a fair settlement for your affair.
Eck.
Jake was left speechless, groaning in despair, as Susan kicked him out of the house. The divorce between Jake and me was finalized later. Susan arranged for a lawyer, and I received a generous settlement, more than the standard amount for the divorce. I also demanded compensation from Maria, Jake's mistress. The affair and subsequent troubles led to Jake and Maria's breakup. Later, Susan generously gave me a large sum of money as compensation. She was relentless. It turned out that Jake's employment was through Susan's connections, and she told his company's president to fire him for his misconduct and disturbing company order by getting involved with a subordinate. Jake was dismissed from his job, with his savings depleted by the divorce settlement and disowned by Susan. Jake is now living in a rundown apartment, working as a day laborer without distinction between day and night. Even knowing this, I feel no sympathy. Serves him right, is all I think. As for me, I moved with the settlement money and continued my work as a writer. Susan and I now address each other by our nickname, Meg and Sizzy, and sometimes travel together. There seems to be much more I can learn from her. I cherish the supportive relationship with Susan and aim to live my life positively moving forward.